So we're here with Kim Conti, founder of Orbit Crates. We're getting our recordings done for the Shaping Connecticut's Future pitch competition. And I think as we start to look out, toward the event, we wanted to get a background from some of the founders in the CCEI program, or what got you to this entrepreneurial point in your life, and what the vision is for Orbit Crates. What was the journey that kind of gave you this aha moment of Orbit Crates?
Yeah, first I just want to say thanks so much for having me and love what you guys are doing in the state. As I mentioned, I'm a Connecticut native and grew up here all of my life and is really invested in the state. So it's really interesting to me to be building a business now. I have a 20-year career actually in technology, innovation, working everything from corporates to startups and consulting. And had a really great career building pretty innovative AI products, actually, tech products, before starting this business. And really enjoyed bringing innovation and technology, I think, to actual core problems, right? Everybody's talking AI, everybody's talking tech now, but what are the problems we're actually trying to solve? And so really loved that experience. And, for the last 4 years, I was working at a startup, living in Connecticut, but based out of New York and the Middle East, and loved that learning experience. But on a personal level, I'm also a local mom, so I have 3 kids. They're a little older now, thank you, a little bit out of the toy phase, but 11, 9, and 5. And, I felt I just had, what am I going to do with all this stuff, right? And, my first son was born back in 2014. And I think there was always a seed of this toy rental idea in my heart. I would look at parents and we'd go to play dates and I would see, the same 5 toys that we had. And then we'd all buy them and then we'd all be trying to get rid of them in 3 months. And, at the same time, I was hearing parents complain like, oh, my toy room is overrun and I'm spending so much time dealing with all of these toys. And it was baffling to me that we didn't have another option except to consume these toys. And then over this parenting journey, I saw it repeat itself, right? With my 2 other kids, we sort of went through these same cycles of dinosaurs, constructions, and monster trucks over and over again. And, looking at it from a business and tech lens, I was like, there are so many macro trends in the industry now around the sharing economy, editing our homes and anti-consumption and, trying to have a more intentional home and thinking what that looks like for our homes, and the fact that we share our clothes, we share our homes, we share our cars. Why aren't we sharing toys? So, I was busy working my job, felt like I had little time to play with my kids on the weekends. And then when we did, I was organizing the toys. We were, shuffling them out. I was buying organizing systems. And I was like, we're not even playing with these toys. At the same time,
when you finally put them away, they forget they have them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think that's the other, insight too, right? Is like most parents know you can be standing in a playroom full of toys, and your kids will be like, "I'm bored. I don't have anything to play with." But then you bring the box up that they haven't seen in a while, and oh my gosh, everybody's totally engaged.
Yep.
So, I was really excited about this opportunity, and we did a pilot while I had my other job, and it actually started to take off, and we did a lot of experimentation in terms of what that looked like, and I felt like it was a real core problem that we were hitting on that parents were excited to solve.
I mean, it's pretty ingenious. I mean, I was thinking, what do? We are going around to friends that are, expecting or just, and trying to see what they could, we could kind of like pass it forward, or random things go up on Marketplace, and every now and then there's someone that shows up at the door like, hey, I'm here for the blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, sure, great. So how does this model truly work?
Yeah. So we learned a lot, like I said, in our pilot and experimentation phase. And, I'm really customer focused. That's also my background. So we wanted to understand what would work well for parents, because this is supposed to be about reducing stress and not adding to it. So right now it's a monthly membership. So parents pay a monthly membership fee, and they can rent 8 toys at any time. So it's basically like the original Netflix model where you've got 8 toys out at any time that you can rent. They can shop from our website. We've got more than 500 toys already categorized and cataloged for them to shop. those toys are delivered to their doorstep. So everything is curated and vetted by us. So we're looking at high quality name brand toys. We're inspecting them to make sure that they're safe. We're cleaning them, we're sanitizing them, and we're delivering them in a way that is accessible to parents. I think we've noticed these other little insights, right? Like we've all been there on a gift giving occasion where you're looking for the screwdriver. You're like, oh my gosh, the batteries. How do I assemble this thing? And you've got then mounds of cardboard that you probably are spending time recycling longer than the kids are actually playing with the toys. So the kids now get this crate of toys that they're excited to open that are something new and novel to them. The parents have the peace of mind knowing the toys won't stick around for long. And so it's a swap as you wish subscription. So there are no set return dates. There are no late fees. Parents go back onto our website and they swap out when they're ready and the kids are bored. So it's really great. We've heard really great feedback on the flexibility of our experience. And just, this idea that yes, marketplace and other things exist, but one, parents don't really have time for that, and two, you're kind of going to strangers' houses with your kids, picking up a bag of toys.
Yeah. Or you're fielding 400 messages, and one person or three people flake, and then it's a disaster.
Yes, this is still available.
Ghost.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. So do they curate their own boxes, or do you also send sort of surprise boxes or recommendations based off of a profile, their kid's profile or something?
Yeah, great question. So when we originally did the pilot, we had some set crates. I think the challenge with that is what is a curated crate to you might not be a curated construction crate, might not be a curated construction crate to somebody else. They might already have toys. They might be looking for different educational benefits or have a different kind of child, right, that likes dress up or likes to play independently as opposed to different interests. So we've moved to you can shop on your own. That really allows parents the flexibility to pick from this library. That said, given my tech background, you can imagine that this is where we also are investing. And right now we are piloting an AI assistant that is trained by our data as well as by educators that will help better match parents to give them almost a digital curated experience. And so when we think about the consumer subscription business, that's what those companies have done well, right? So if you think about Stitch Fix and others, they've really invested in the data, they've invested in this personalized experience so that they can almost predict what their customers want based on interests and data models.
Yeah, it's come a long way since the trunk club days where you had your shopper.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm interested in hearing about, your toy acquisition, how you keep them in rotation, and how are you staying ahead of, the current trends? And I feel like every Christmas, another toy is, the hot toy, right? So how are you staying ahead of that?
So initially we started buying retail, right? This was a lot of a test and learn model in terms of what customers wanted. Over time, the amazing thing about our brand is that people have really understood one of the benefits to this is I can also give you my toys. And so we're really changing the acquisition strategy where we get tons of donated products, oftentimes for free, right? Parents want to get these out of their home. And we do that in exchange for a store credit. So it's an interesting revenue model for us. So we start to acquire those toys. And those toys are still relatively new, right? They're still in that parenting phase. And there's a lot of common toys, especially in the younger age groups, that everybody consistently rents and uses. We are looking to long-term, I think, look to manufacturers who might be interested in selling out and partnering with us in terms of some wholesale deals. We do shop a little bit wholesale for some higher quality end products. So that's part of our process. And it all goes to the curation, right? So we are still vetting the toys. We're not going to rent you a $4 plastic toy that is going to break and you could, that parents don't want anyway. So that's part of our curation process.
Okay, great. Very nice.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, you're always going to have the in-demand hot toys of the season, but then there's also, there's the staples and there's the things that, are the daily play, and the age group that you're kind of, seems like the sweet spot right now they're really not at that point yet. It's not the latest Tickle Me Elmo. It's like, it's the 4-piece puzzle and things, that are fundamentals to sort of learning and, evolving as little humans. So what's the current subscriber volume look like? How how many people are kind of recurring customers? You know, what's the net new acquisition look like? You know,
Yeah, so we've successfully completed 60 rentals across the state. Those have been to several repeat customers. And we just launched our subscription platform on May 1st. So again, we were in this pilot universe. And we've got active subscription customers who are highly engaged with our brand and product. They consistently give us 5 out of 5 star reviews, often recommend us to friends, and they're very engaged with their swapping process. So again, this is a customer-driven experience, right? They go on and decide when they want to swap, and we see a lot of high interaction with us in terms of wanting to swap based on, you know, their kids' ages and milestones. Mm-hmm. So we're seeing a really active base. We also see organic growth on our mailing lists and our social media following. We actually haven't done a ton of marketing just yet because we've relaunched the subscription. Mm-hmm. We're working with those pilot customers. And actually, back to your question really quickly about toys and toy curation, one of the great exciting things about working with a small set of pilot customers right now is we are curating based on their needs and interests. And we're starting to see, you know, common trends, and we know that retention in this business is going to be really important, as well as lifetime value. And so how do those customers lead us through their parenting journey and say, okay, now my kids are starting to look for this. So we're doing it in a customer-centric way where we're talking to our customers and saying, what are the things that your kids are most interested in playing with? And we're certainly seeing some trends. Yeah. And then we're also capturing that from a data perspective.
And you mentioned too, you know, kind of going wholesale with some relationships. My mind went to the Love Everys or the Kiwis that are, you know, kind of, they're their own branded, but they come in monthly. It seems like that could be a good partner network or relationship building network for you.
Yeah, I mean, those are the products that are in hot demand, and we definitely, those are the ones that when we go invest and we actually go out and buy toys, those are the ones that we're often buying, and we're trying to buy those secondhand, right? Because our goal is to try to capitalize on toys that are already in the market today rather than to create a new toy brand. So we do get a lot of requests for those. And, you know, I think at the end of the day, we're going to have a depth of SKU that's going to be for those really common products that we know are a core. And then we're going to go outside of that because I think we all kind of recognize that kids don't just stay in the Montessori phase. Then they get into the Bluey characters or the Paw Patrol characters that we all know and love. And then on the national brand perspective, we're also, you know, we just got a really interesting organic interaction on our social media channels from one of the largest national toy brands who gave us some positive feedback when we were renting their toys. So I think we're at a really interesting point where companies are really focused on sustainability and are more open to partnering with other companies to see what that footprint looks like.
Do you have any theses around sort of the core demographic yet, like the best target for you?
Yeah, so right now, based on what we've seen from our pilot customers, we do really well with the parents or the new parents who've got a 1-year-old. So first of all, those parents tend to be younger in demographic. And I think in general, if you look at the likelihood of the next wave of parents, they're much more likely to shop secondhand. They're much more likely to rent instead of own. So they're already interested in this anti-consumption behavior that I think even older parents were participating in. They also don't have a lot of the toys and are sort of looking for a new way of working in that business model. So those parents with the 1-year-old, they do really, really well with us. They talk about, you know, we have one customer who's excited about Orbit Crates growing with her family. We also have parents who do have younger kids, so much like you, but maybe already have a playroom full. But what they're finding is when they start on the rental membership with us, they can start to declutter and they can really feel this peace of mind. And there's this one amazing story of this parent who I think had all of the things. She rented some of our grocery store products, and she said, you know what I used to hate is the paper money and the coins. Like, what are you going to do with all this stuff? And instead of, you know, buying that, she had fewer toys rented from us, and then her kids created the paper money and coins. So when we talk about, this isn't just a play in terms of the toy rental economy, but really changing how we think about intentional play, intentional homes, connection. You talk about, you know, kids being much more intentional about how they're playing and actually re-educating the next generation about how do we think about consumption as opposed to intentionality.
And you touched on it a little bit. I would love to hear about the environmental impact that this has in decluttering. And you already touched on it a little bit, but I'd love to hear if you go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, so today there's a study that says there are 272 million unused toys and baby items in U.S. households alone, which is wild. Parents are nodding in the room, right, that have this, so probably not a surprise. But
The majority are in my house.
actually not surprising when you consider the fact that U.S. makes up 3% of the world's kids, but we consume 40% of the world's toys. On average, kids play with those toys 6 months at a time, if that, depending on the toy. I think we've all been there where they get a toy and they never play with it. And that oftentimes means that our landfills are filled with toys. And toys make up 6% of our landfills, which is actually quite significant. And all of this is despite the fact that there is early childhood educational research that actually proves kids do better with the fewer toys they have. And there's educators that are saying, it is not about more, it is about, doing more with less.
Interesting. We're just, I'm cleaning out storage units right now, and I'm finding toys that I never opened when I was like 5. And
They're probably some are worth money. You
Some
better Google that.
Or, I know a great place you can give them to. If they're still on trend.
Yep.
But that it is staggering to think of that as the footprint that we're leaving with this. And most of it is not, the higher end, recyclable or the wood. It's plastic and it's
mixed materials. Yeah. The majority of toys are made from plastics. And a lot of people, well intended, but will bring them to their local donation center. I've talked to those donation centers. They put the toys in landfills within a week because they're so overrun. And so I think we have this perception that we're trying to do the best at what we can. And so Orbit Crates, we're trying to change that. And so even if you look at our Instagram account, we talk about saving toys. And we go and do donation runs, again, back to how we're acquiring these toys. We look for those high quality toys that are safe, well inspected, current. We clean them up and then we rent them. And I think that's just such a beautiful story. Like when I talk to customers and I know they're looking for these types of toys. I know I can rent them and I know we also save them from those landfills.
How often do you anticipate being able to sort of rehome a toy before it has to get fully retired? It's going to vary, but right now, thanks to our pilot customers, they're quite good with our toys. We know that as we scale, obviously, that's going to change. I think a lot of this in terms of how we curate our toys. So again, we are growing to those high quality name brand toys, the high construction toys. We also, like I said, aren't renting really complex toys with lots of little pieces that are going to break. Also, parents don't want those, and kids don't get a lot of value out of them anyway. So we have seen our toys take several turns, 7, 8, 9 times, depending on the type of the turn, even more depending on the age and the type of toy. So that's really great. And then when they do, one of the things that we're looking to do from a revenue model is to sell retired toys to a kind of different segment, right? Who might be just interested in shopping secondhand, may not have had the opportunity to rent some of these or buy some of these new and can simply purchase and buy. Well, when you talk about the U.S. accounting for 40%, are there markets that you can partner with internationally that would be potential recipients of these retirement-ready toys almost?
So we're already doing a little bit of that today.
Okay.
So we're partnering with a nonprofit today. It costs a lot to send those toys overseas, realistically. But we do partner with a nonprofit who will take some of our retired toys and is distributing them throughout the state. And a percentage of all of our proceeds also goes to that nonprofit, and they're working with orphanages overseas. So that's a whole part of our mission driven is toy equity as well, right to that point.
Do you have a number of toy inventory that you think is going to be a boundary that you're trying to just realistically sort of, obviously with tech and AI, it can scale, but do you think that there's a sweet spot, where parents don't, to your point, don't have time unless it's getting fully curated for them, to scroll through thousands of toys is probably outside the bounds of what they can, toys or Instagram, they'll probably.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question. And again, it is why we're investing in this personalized experience. I think even now, scrolling through hundreds of toys can be a little bit daunting. And I think this idea of going into your account and automatically seeing those toys that you'd like based on your kids' interests, kids like you, childhood development milestones, things you've rented before, I think is going to be really, really helpful for our customers. And again, when I talk about AI coming from somebody in tech AI, I have a use case of how we want to apply this and how we're training our models. To your question about the actual inventory, yeah, I think there are going to be bounds, and we already sort of do that subjectively today, right? We know kind of what's core and what's not core based on ticket price, MSRP, right? The size of the item, and the popularity of the item. I think that said, at the end of the day, we want to give our customers optionality. We want to make this membership one that does grow with their families. And so if you think of things like a library, right? Libraries actually have nailed this. They can rent tens of thousands of books with one single book. And granted, they don't have as many pieces, but they figured out a way to kind of rent and make themselves available to kids and families of all different interests.
There were 4 library books on my counter, and I was like, wait, you can still actually get books in the library? Like, this is I was like, when do we have to return these? Like, yeah.
No set return dates. That's the beauty, right? We're
Yeah.
taking cues from all these different places that have been proven before.
What's the kind of ultimate vision for growth? Do you see it scaling up in age range, or is it right now just focused on like a core and market penetration
it's
there?
focused. Our goal is market penetration. Absolutely. We want to scale in Connecticut much more deeply. We want to make sure that we're retaining those customers. We're giving them a great experience and that we can grow with them and their families so that we're not chasing customer acquisition costs, right? That's going to be important for us. That said, I think, as somebody who left my career to do this because I had so many ideas, we have lots of ideas in terms of how this scales. We've heard things from renting those Tony Music Box. Those to even larger.
Tim would love that.
Even larger subscriptions, which we've actually been trialing from a pilot standpoint. So something, toy kitchens and things like that. Now that's a very different scalable model when you think about e-com and national distribution. So these are all things that we're piloting in the next 12 months of, what does that look like for our customers? What does that look like for our business scale? But we really believe that this model has been proven in a couple of different ways, whether you're looking at the subscription model for fashion and rental fashion, or you look at meal delivery services, which are stayed pretty local, but have expanded through local delivery.
What was that turning point in your career where you decided, I want to, go at this full time?
I really felt like I am now at this point in my career where I have amassed so much experience in so many different job functions, so many different industries, different types of companies, large and small, and wanted to have an opportunity to do it myself. I think, female mom founders are relatively unrepresented. And I thought, this is an idea that I know people want. I think, there are not a lot of people solving directly in our homes and parenting problems. And I thought this was a gap. Absolutely. And, I wanted to build a company that solved problems for people like me, for all of the moms and parents in the world that I talk to, every day. And also just wanted to build a company that I was really proud and excited of. I think after working in business for 20 years, I know what works, what doesn't work, what kind of company and vision I want to build for the future. Was
that entrepreneurial spirit always there?
Yes. If you talk to personally people I know or professionally, I think I was always building, and I had an amazing time doing that at companies here in Connecticut, got to build innovation. And I think the thread for me has always been really looking at the core problem. Like tech is great, and the trend, whether it's AI or AR or whatever the thing was 10 years ago that we were worried about, that's always evolving. But how do you really focus on the core problem? How do you get that customer adoption right in the door and make sure that you're pivoting with what the market needs?
Sure. Yeah, there's always the big theses on, what AI will be, or Web3 or AR. And to your point, like there's tangible problems that can be solved, short term that are that have longevity too.
Yeah. I kind of joke sometimes that toys are a little bit like funerals. They're always good, like tech is always going to evolve, but we're always going to need, I hope we're always going to need something to do with our kids physically in our homes that are not on a screen. And, I actually think more than ever, we're kind of looking for that physical way of connecting that is not on a screen and facilitated through a screen. So I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Have you considered, or like the media angle of some of this? Obviously there's, and I don't know, maybe because I said this to in a similar conversation, like I'm so close to it now, but like the Miss Rachel's and Bluey's and Mika's and just like this explosion of kid focused online creators. Do you see a path there for creation or partnership, or have you kind of experimented with that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are partnered with some pretty interesting organizations. So we're partnered with a local preschool, and we're working with them. I think they see a lot of benefits to their shared customer base. We're partnered with the National Association of Professional Organizers. So you can imagine they go and clean out your playroom, but they're really teaching this new mindset. And then, of course, the educational community. So we're partnered with some micro-influencers in Connecticut. We're looking to scale that as well. Some are our subscription customers today, as well as other emerging businesses that are really invested in education and kids. And I think, I said this earlier, but we're invested in not only renting toys, but reteaching kids and families how to play and connect over toys. And so some of the things that we do in our crates is we send out content and we say, think outside the crate, right? So you don't need to rent a 57-piece set to have a kitchen. You can make your own additional kitchen things. And so I think re-educating consumers and how do we not get caught up in clicking a button or buying the thing off the shelf to placate our kids, but to really think about play in a different way is important. And so I think those partnerships with educators and influencers who are really connected to this space will be important for us.
Yeah, that's where my mind was going, was like almost a encouragement to engage with sort of the new crate that they get, whether it's the parents scan something or, there's a piece, but there's something that gets them excited about sort of the new delivery.
Yeah, we actually have, photos and number of pieces. So it actually teaches this intentionality with kids of how to pack up their toys and put them away and take care of things. And we also have a guest book in there. So we encourage kids to sort of pass along stories about how they're playing. And then hopefully on our roadmap, we're collecting this information today, but we collect who we're getting the donations for so that we can share that. So you can imagine, this toy was donated from, this child from someplace in the country. And when we talk about connection, I think that's what the brand stands for, is it's how do we connect better with our kids in our homes and our family? How do we connect with each other? And how do we connect with the planet at large, right?
Yeah, and as you scale, it's like, keeps moving through different centers, right? And it's like, what's toy starts in Connecticut and makes its way to California at some point, right?
Yeah.
And that's really cool. Yeah.
And I think parents are craving, like you talk to moms, and I think we're all kind of craving that connection, right? They want a place to relate to other parents and talk about, other parenting challenges as well.
What kind of obstacles have you faced, since you've started this, whether it was in the process of going live with this or even right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a big leap to go from even a startup organization with a couple of other people to solo entrepreneur. I'm fortunate to have a lot of great partners, contractors, and consultants. But as you can see, I've got a huge vision for the brand, technically, operationally, how we scale. And I think doing it all alone has been quite challenging. And it's frustrating a little bit for me too, right? I have, given my career, I know so many amazing designers, marketers, supply chain people. I want to bring them on board, but I haven't been able to get to that yet. I think the other thing is we've been super lean and building out our requirements for what this operating model looks like, which means I fulfill the toys from my home today.
Yeah.
So being somebody who does not like the clutter, I now have that, but it's actually been a really...
Kim drops it off right now.
It's actually been a really great learning model in terms of what does the logistics at scale look like for us. We've been talking to everybody from, you can imagine companies that rent large scale equipment to wedding people who rent for wedding events. And so I think we're learning a lot about, what that looks like for us. I know our core competency is going to be in that initial warehousing and making sure the toys are cleaned and sanitized and inspected. But it's building a roadmap for us in terms of how we scale logistically. So that's a little bit challenging from time to time, but my kids love it. So
I can imagine.
You're like, where did that stuff go? I gotta get sent out today. I think you touched on it, but from a growth standpoint, are school districts or daycare centers and is is that a viable model, or do they use staple toys differently, or is there too much wear and tear to go that route?
Yeah, so we've done a little bit of a testing. It's not our core focus right now. Again, we really want to scale with families, focus on that retention, focus on the lifetime value. That said, I think, we see daycares and preschools as interesting for us in a couple of different ways. Interesting marketing partners for us. Interesting in terms of distribution and fulfillment as we scale, where you meet parents where they are in the future as a drop-off and pick-up location. I think what might work best for us is some of those micro preschools who are really actually Montessori-led. They're going to be they have smaller number of children to fulfill. I think that's really interesting for us. It's not our core focus right now, but certainly happy to have some of those conversations.
Yeah, my mind was going access to those lists, the email lists and things like that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And again, from a parenting model, right? It's like meeting parents where they are.
Yeah. So, in the spirit of the kind of the competition here, the ideal state, for the event is we have investors and partner businesses and, great representation from all businesses, in the state, to move forward and, to potentially win. What's the kind of that first thing that, you would really look to, some prize money and some support to help solve a current real problem? We know that there's a list on the roadmap, but
Sure.
What's you think going to be the biggest step forward right now?
Yeah, I think it's being able to scale this operation across the state. And I think once we do that, we can nail the national model of what this looks like as a hub and spoke model where we're fulfilling these toys out of a warehouse or several warehouses. We know there's interest here. As I said, we've got organic growth and interest. We've got our ads perform higher than benchmark today in terms of click-through rate. So there's definitely customer interest. We're looking for investment so that we can scale to this next phase of business. We can get the toys out of my house and really prove out this model so that we can capitalize on Connecticut. And then we're looking at other states in the Northeast. We also have a wait list available for other states, and we've got interest there. So this would help us scale and prove out the model.
Any unique signups or surprising signups from states that?
No, I mean, I think I personally have some connections in New York, and there's a really interesting pocket of New York that is ex-Brooklyn, ex-City. And so those, not a surprise, more eco-conscious friendly, I think more willing to shop secondhand. So we're starting to see some of those common psychographics that are common in families and where there might be interesting areas.
It seems like urban areas would be, the world wants to declutter, but like they have to, right?
Yeah.
Just with limited square footage. So
yeah.
What do you think has been the most surprising thing you've kind of learned? Was there anything that was different than what you felt the experience or feelings would be from the marketplace, from your perspective as a mom?
Yeah, I mean, I think you always go in with certain hypotheses about what's going to work, what's not going to work, and good founders have backup plans A, B, and C for all of those things. I think a couple of things, and one of the things I did want to mention too is also the cost savings and the benefits. So we track today for our customers cost saving reports. On average, our customers save $137 for every rental to buy, instead of buying new, renting with us. And so we knew that there was savings opportunity there.
Yeah.
But I think really quantifying that for our customers is really, really huge.
That's huge, yeah.
I think, one of the things we validated is, of course, parents are super busy. I think helping them search through and find the toys is going to be important, which is why we are investing in technology and personalization. I think the other thing is sort of, again, this really beautiful story of the kids. I think initially some people are like, what if my kid gets really attached to this toy? We have a different revenue model, like I said, where we are going to be selling retired products. They can also buy out of the box today, and we offer that on their account, so they can buy an item. But what we're finding is kids are sort of starting to get this behavior, which again is, I think, when I think about vision and passion of why I'm doing this, it's about the next the next generation. And so generally speaking, kids, think I'm Santa Claus because we bring something new and exciting. But what we're finding is kids ages 1 to 5 will actually start to give us toys. And they sort of get this idea of passing things along, and this idea that we can share our toys like we share our books, and we might want to take care of things has been really surprising. I think it surprises parents that the kids are ready to pass things along. I think parents feel like, I got to accumulate all this stuff in case they want something to play with. And we haven't really seen that as the case. And the time that parents are getting back to, have fewer things and go on this journey with us has been really amazing to see.
I wonder if indirectly there's some element of accelerated learning or, through the process of like the emotional maturity of giving up something that potentially they've kind of fixated on, but then also just the consistency and varied toys that are coming through, because you joke about it, but the amount of dinosaurs and, monster trucks that are going on in my household right now is crazy. But, even from like a music standpoint, it's like, don't you want to listen to something else? And they just get fixated. So this idea of like learning how to give something up.
That's a good point.
Like actually could have secondary benefits.
Sure. Yeah. And I think there are those natural childhood milestones that an educator would tell you that are important as, attachment bonds and things like that. But I agree. And I think as we think about what do we want our next generation of citizens to look like, I think we've all sort of recognized what mass consumption looks like in this country. And we're trying to even teach ourselves, I think me as a parent and other parents, of like, how do I just learn that I don't have to have that because it's available to me and I can have it? But how do I think about being more intentional with my time, my space, and getting kids to understand that at an early age, I think is really important.
And even to, this is again a roadmap thing, but to connect people, it's like you have the guest book, and if parents want to opt in, right, they can almost have the pen pal of, the future, where it's like, see who had this toy before me, and you can kind of, connect with them somehow.
It was like when you were in school and you had the textbook and it was the last person who had it, always wrote it down.
Yeah. And I think as a society, again, we're kind of craving for that organic, authentic connection. And again, I think like tying it back to the state in Connecticut, I think we're such a great state because we have so much opportunity, but we're still small. And, I grew up here and have visited every town, and somebody knows somebody. And so I think it's a great place to kind of start that storytelling here.
Yeah, feels like everyone's finally ready to just stop being apologetic that they're from Connecticut and that there's great ideas coming out of here and great emerging businesses, and that's exciting.
Do you have any partners that you indirectly started a partnership with that kind of surprised you by going through this? I know you mentioned like preschools and daycares, but anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, they've been, I think those partners, the professional organizers, the educators have been really, really supportive, really engaged. I think similar to this conversation, the brand and concept has so many different avenues, whether you're looking at it from an educator's perspective. And I think that's been really incredible. So on our advisory board, we have doctors of education, we have people in early childhood education. And I think they really see this core need to help educate parents on how to educate kids. And, I think this intentional parenting and figuring out how do we talk to kids in a way that I think, is intentional, but is helpful for their development has been really great. And so working with these educators has been nice as they think about, how do we talk about a toy in a way that it can facilitate calming big feelings or playing independently or maybe playing with others, depending on what your kid is doing. And so there's this whole educational lens that we're also really excited about as a brand to bring in. And one of the things on our roadmap is to bring in more educators to be part of this company and talk about what education and facilitation looks like. And we used to, we had this part of our product and service that had content, right? So depending on what you get in your crate, it would give you ideas and ways to play. So we're looking at how do we scale that with educators when we have a very large toy library.
Yeah. Or even recompile, just having gotten some of those subscription boxes and they all come with like the instructions and like what the the ideal learn what they're supposed to learn from
Sure.
it and that kind of thing, and it's
Yeah.
and then that all gets thrown away or put on a shelf somewhere, and so it's even being able to recompile some of those to go along with the toys so people know what their ultimate purposes would be
Yeah.
valuable.
And I think, parents, to your question on things learned here, parents want to connect with their kids, but they're just equally as busy and inundated. And so how do we make this a seamless experience that's fun and novel and maybe gives them that peace of mind? So again, I spend less time with the boxes, buying organizing systems, redoing my room from phase to phase, and I can actually sit down with my kids and think about playing with that or facilitate a way for them to play more independently.
Yeah. You mentioned that, 40% of all the toys in the world are bought by Americans, 6% of landfills are full of toys. Is there any tangible data that supports why, American families hold on to toys? Is it emotional? Is it a lack of resources? Is there any data that supports that you found?
Because we're gluttonous as a society.
I think that would be the same for a lot of categories.
Yeah.
It's a great question. I mean, I don't have a data or stat beyond the facts that I cited here. It's an interesting one. I think it's just, convenience. And I think we're a society that has, especially in certain areas, affluence, and we have the ability to consume. Everything is convenient. And I think it's at a detriment to us. Again, I think we're now reflective of what that feels like in our homes. And I do think it's more rampant in the U.S. than it is in other countries. As you've seen, many people have visited, or when you talk to people, kids, even over generationally too, right? Kids have many, many more toys than they ever did decades ago. And it's just about more. And I think this placation that a lot is going to satisfy, I think, deeper things like connection and actual playtime is if we just keep giving more stuff, it'll satisfy. And I think we've gotten into some bad habits with that just as a society, whether it's the goodie bags or the toy, it used to be novel to get a toy in a cereal box or the Happy Meal. Now it's like add it to the pile of the 50 things they came home with for Valentine's Day today.
Yeah.
And again, I
You
think
had to eat
we
the
like
cereal and you had to collect them.
Yeah, I think it's just it's mass consumption.
Yeah.
Which is problematic.
I think, and culturally too, I mean, I'm not the biggest world traveler, but I don't imagine there are playrooms in many people's homes around the world. And they certainly don't have basements that they're just finish and stuff as many toys as, it's like the house is clean. We're just going to throw it all downstairs and let the kids go wild, right? And just so I think there's a lot of reasons, to your point.
And when you think about, again, homes and families, and that's why I'm mission driven on this, that's why, I left this career to do this, is the lagging effects of that, or the effects that we feel now. So women's cortisol levels increases significantly because clutter is one of the number one reasons for stress in the home, and women feel it more acutely than men. Their level of stress goes up, and then the stress in the family, in the home. And I think this idea of invisible work, sometimes it's men, but oftentimes it is women who are cleaning, organizing, rotating toys, posting on Marketplace, and trying to do the 500 other things. I don't think our homes, our families were ever meant to be cycled around toys. That's what, Orbit Crates is trying to do for families today. We're trying to take that out of the home so that it can be about the connection.
Yeah. That's great.
Is there a gifting model, or, that holidays come up, or thinking for grandparents, they're taking the grandkids for a week, seems like a good one-off or, opportunity for them to just get a little, crate and have something for their grandkids to play with for a weekend or something like that.
Yeah, I'm super excited about the grandparent market. I actually think, again, there's opportunities, and they're different than grandparents than ever before. They're much more active. They're much more engaged with their grandkids than ever before. We are going to be launching gift cards very soon on our website for grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends. I think everybody sort of recognizes that, we keep buying too much stuff. I also think there's a really interesting engagement model for grandparents who may want to connect with their kids, whether they live here or somewhere else in the country, and they may want to shop with their kids every month. And so what does that model look like where they can have this engagement and they can talk to their grandkids about things that they're interested in by shopping with Orbit Crates, right? They're ready to get there next month. And what are some things that we as the toy company recommend? And then what are some things that their grandkids are playing with? So we're excited about the grandparent model and scaling that over the next few months as well.
Very nice.
Yeah, the gift giving seems, at least in my household, like that was the, mom bought the subscription and we finally were like, you can end that now. Like we've got enough boxes that are unopened. I don't know. So what are some final thoughts as an entrepreneur? I mean, you're much more seasoned entrepreneur and savvy, business person than I think a lot of the folks that we've talked to are getting a lot more coaching, it feels like, from CCEI on just business in general and, really trying to figure out how to go about evaluation or growth and scale. And you definitely have that vision. So, if you're kind of coaching them or if you're talking to other entrepreneurs and they're thinking about kind of taking that step from going corporate to, going out on their own, what's the one thing you sort of tell them to do or not do?
Yeah, interesting question. It's actually interesting. One of the highs of this journey has not only been building this business, but also talking to other female entrepreneurs, women, moms sometimes, who have really great ideas and I think are excited about bringing businesses to Connecticut, but get hung up on the business stuff. And a lot of them, sometimes often have product market fit, whether they're selling in a smaller market or have, early signs of revenue. And I think that that's the message to all founders, right? Is focused on product market fit. That's why I love what I do and building really quickly and executing fast. Is the end of the day, you've got to be building solutions and services that customers want and they're willing to pay for now. That's the case if you're a seasoned entrepreneur and you've done this multiple times, or if you're brand new to doing that. And I think super focus on product market fit, getting that feedback and continuous loop from your customers to make sure that you're consistently open to that. I think always thinking about pivoting. That's certainly one thing I've learned in my 20 years experience and 4 years last at a SaaS company. And we made lots of pivots and we built the org up and we, restructured it a couple of times. That's really important. Being open for pivots in the market, being open for unforeseen challenges, whether that's, longer customer cycles than you expected, different revenue models, B2B models that open up that are kind of interesting. I think that's all really important, and understanding, the capital market and the investment community, what that looks like, and how to think about what traction looks like for investors, who those investors might be that align to your vision and goals. I think that's really important. We have so many different businesses here in Connecticut, and we're certainly a consumer subscription business, which I actually think is really exciting for Connecticut. We have so many financial services and biotech and medical and healthcare. I'm excited about a consumer business born in Connecticut where we are focused on education and families. That's sort of what our state is known for. And so I think finding other investors who align with your vision is important as well.
Yeah, as long as it's not another pizza shop. Just as you were talking, have you considered, and the younger parents, the first-time parents are always very conscious of, the chemical content of the toys and things that their kids are playing with. Is the Green Guard or, any other form, is that a filter or is it a consideration that you have?
I'm so glad you asked. I have one great story to tell you guys about a younger parent, if you have a minute. A couple of things on cleaning, sanitation, all of those things. So again, that's why we work with high quality brands, vetted brands that are already doing a lot of that for us today, manufactured, in the U.S. or in other countries that we feel are committed to that safety standard. On sanitation and cleaning, very, very invested in that. As a mom myself, we know that is one of the things core that our parents look for. That said, there have been other, companies that have done versions of secondhand, and I think that there is openness to rent and buy secondhand more than ever before. And so the story on this is actually quite amazing. I was, shopping from one of our local donation centers, saving toys as I do. And there were two moms in the parking lot, and they were seemingly having a play date there. They were nursing and they were hanging out and they were going in and shopping. I actually talked to them and I talked to them about this model and they were really excited. And so again, I think those parents coming up are see the value in what shopping secondhand looks like. I also think one of the things we're trying to do at Urban Crates is change the stigma, right? So I think there are those large donation centers, and there used to be a stigma, like, I'm not going to go in there. It's, maybe for different people other than me who are going to do that. And I think people are willing to change that. I'm sure you guys have seen in the fashion industry, it's actually quite distinct now to buy secondhand because it's a unique thing, and I'm being sustainable and I'm being eco-conscious. So I think that's really important. Yeah. So there's two sides of that, right? It's the cleaning and sanitation, which we know absolutely has to be important, and we have lots of ideas about how to scale that. And when we talk to parents, we say, our toys are often more sanitary than when you're going to a playgroup or a library. I would
imagine so, unfortunately.
Right. And so we kind of meet them where they are, but I think this next generation is going to be a lot more open to understanding the value. And we also know, after you're a parent for about six months, you're kind of like willing to pick the pacifier up off the floor and put it in their mouth.
Well, Kim, thank you for telling us all about Orbit Crates.
Thank you, guys.
They were super exciting. To your point, the model is different for Connecticut, but it's exciting to show different types of businesses are here and on their way to rocket ship. And
absolutely
excited to see the market feedback and excited to see you scale. It's, to your point, a great market fit. Thank you.
Thank
you for coming. Good luck with everything.
Great. Thank you so much.